Hi, my name is Chris Salem, and you're listening to Awaken Nation with Brad Salas.
A huge shift is taking place on planet Earth. People seem to be waking up. Tired of the way things used to be, they are creating something brand new and changing the world we live in. My name is Brad Salas, and I get to sit down with the next generation of idea makers, the disruptors, and the game changers. Everyday people, just like you and me, from all over, who are doing amazing things. Welcome to Awakened Nation. Folks, I want to tell you, this guy that we have on today, hey, how you doing? I sound like a New Yorker when I do that, right, Chris? Chris Salem, man, I have been watching this guy online and on Facebook and different places for years, and just, always positive. Not like me, I get involved in the political discussions. I throw out, all this conspiracy theory junk, everything. Chris is the opposite of me. Cool as hell, relaxed. And I know he's turning red right now, right, Chris?
I guess, yeah, I got the shirt, so it definitely contrasts. I got the whiter shirt.
And this is the amazing part about the digital age. I've been watching him. We've been communicating back and forth. We know the same people. Leah Woodford kind of brought us together. And we met finally in Scottsdale, Arizona. This year, we shared 3 days together where we were on a panel discussion, got to see him speak. And his story is interesting. And it's right up there with the kind of guests we have here on Awakened Nation. And Chris, I'll read your bio in a second, but I want to say welcome to the show, getting right to the point, and really honored to have you on the show, man.
Oh, Brad, it's such a pleasure to be here. What I love about your show. It's just so transparent, and people are just real. It's just speaking the truth, speaking from the heart, and I'm really looking forward to today.
Good, my brother. Well, let me read off some of this, because you've done some amazing things. You've spoken in front of some very cool companies. But Christopher Salem, CEO of CRS Group Holdings, LLC, mentors and consults with entrepreneurs, business leaders, sales professionals, and companies to build and protect their brands by raising their level of influence as trusted advisors to maximize their results. Let me tell you, that is a hard thing to do in this day and age. A lot of us snuck in before it all became like a system. But this starts from the inside out, building your level of influence by shifting from a fixed to growth mindset and adopting a process to scale your business through raising your level of influence. His program also helps companies to create an interdependent work environment and thriving culture through effective communication, transparent leadership, and high engagement. And this is the thing that I noticed about you, bro, because we were hanging out for 3 days, but Chris is also an accomplished business and emotional intelligence strategist, corporate trainer, world-class speaker, award-winning author, a certified mindset expert, radio show host, and media personality, and a wellness advocate. And I want to talk about this because we were at a party afterwards, and I want you to tell us your journey, because we were all standing around drinking. We're in this hangar. We're exhausted. It's hot. We've been doing this for 3 days. People don't realize when you're a speaker and a coach and you've been asked to do this, you're on. And I don't know about you, but I try not to be on. I just try to be who I am. And you and I got in a circle. We're all having a good time. And I said, would you like something to drink? And you said, I've been sober for certain amount of years, and I honor that, and I admire that, because I have a family. I came from a family of alcoholics, so I respect that, man. Do you want to talk about your journey a little bit, how you got here?
Absolutely. I mean, today I can look at, Brad, being an addict, for the early part of my life as a blessing, because I don't think I would be, who I am today and the value that I give to people by being the example had I not gone through that experience. So when I say that I'm an addict, I was addicted. Obviously there was alcohol, there was drugs, there was sex, but really the true addiction that I grew up throughout my teens and throughout my 20s, right into my early 30s, was anger. And it was the addiction to the anger as a result of my level of self-esteem and self-confidence about myself that went back to my childhood. It all tied back to my father. And the way that I medicated to escape and function was alcohol, drugs, and sex. Really, whatever was available that's what it was. And,
Yeah.
and so I had bouts, with binge drinking, 2 near-death experiences with alcohol poisoning in my 20s. But those weren't the wake-up calls for me. The wake-up call for me was finally when my father was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 56, which now that I could look back, that his cancer was just a manifestation of his own emotional imbalance, going back to his own childhood and his disconnect with his father back then. And that was kind of like when the light bulb went off and said, I can't point the finger at anybody else anymore. I can't say that it's my dad's fault or society's fault or the person I was working for or represented. I had to look. This is the guy that I had to look in the mirror and say, no matter what has happened, you didn't ask for all these situations, but you played a part in it. So now you got to own up and do something about it. And that was the turning point for me. And my father, even though I had this disconnect with him and there was a lot of anger towards him, he gave me the greatest gift that I could ever ask for, because if it wasn't for that moment, it was like he was looking at me, but he was not conscious. He was, basically sedated as he was dying, but he basically was looking in the direction and telling me, in a telepathic way, if you want to call it that don't end up like me and regret, neglecting your family and pursuing the things that are really, while they're important, they're not as important as taking care of your well-being and being there for your family. That was the turning point, and that's what changed the quality of my life forever. And I was never so if people knew me back in the day and they saw me now, they're like, wait a minute, who's this guy? If they haven't seen me, it's night and day. But underneath, I was always a good guy in a way, but I had a lot of deep-rooted anger, and you knew it. It came out, but that was in essence the story. It's the alcohol, drugs, and sex were just just ways to escape the anger and medicate and manage it.
It is a blessing. I was raised by my stepfather. That's my last name. Zalis is Hungarian, and if you know Hungarians, we didn't wear helmets and pads when we rode bicycle. My dad thought all that stuff was ridiculous and nonsense. And I think it's something about the boomer in us. We woke up in an era where therapy wasn't really around, at that young age, and our tension between our fathers made us who we are. And so I admire that you bring that up, because that relationship, and some people, if you do a little research on this, folks, those of you who are listening in and curious about this subject, there's a belief that our emotions are stored in certain organs. And one of the deepest emotions is anger, especially for men. And it gets stored in our gallbladder and our livers, and then it shows up in our heart. And so if do you ever hear, oh, you've got gall, well, that comes from, bile in the gallbladder and the gall duct, we spit bile. We're so angry. And every time I've noticed when people get clean and sober, there's a lot of anger there. And it's managing our anger. I think that's the hardest thing. It's the lashing out. God bless you that you got through it and you did it. And I'm sure people in your past are kind of going, that guy's a motivational speaker. It's like,
yeah,
and it happens.
Yeah, they might have been saying, well, this guy I could have seen leading could have been some hate group or something like that.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get Eric. We're going to get Eric. That's how mad we are. Well, this is something people kind of like. Like I said, I grew up around alcoholics, and my family owned a bar. So it's right there.
I'm the same way. My father was in that. Well, ended up being. He didn't drink, but my dad was addicted to other things, and my brother was a heroin addict. So I can relate 100%.
Yeah. And I think it's amazing where we've come from. I got I can't say it's addiction because, but I was medicating my pain in high school, and alcohol, was there, but it was pot for me. My mother was bipolar, and my father could be emotionally abusive and manipulative. And I just find it funny how we grew up in these time periods and did these things. And I have to tell you, Chris, it makes you grow up fast. I don't know about you, but you get a lot of maturity thrust on you at a young age.
Yeah.
And now today, and maybe you could relate to this, all my friends who didn't go through anything are now going through hell now. And guess who they call? They call me.
You.
They figure it out. It's like, well, how'd you do that? How'd you survive? Blah, blah, blah. And I just find it funny. And I'm going to continue with your bio. You start out this way. You're going through this hell and you figure it out. And now you're working with individuals around the world, including business leaders from organizations such as JP Morgan Chase, Ralph Lauren, UTC, Pratt Whitney, Raytheon, Microchip Technologies, Anthem, U.S. Census Bureau, United Healthcare, Laticrete Corporation, Hubbell Corporation, Conning Company, Foxwoods Casino, NYPD Forensics Department, hello, including universities such as Hartford, Bay Path University, Worcester State University, and spoke on overcoming limited beliefs for peak performance at Harvard University's faculty club. Don't you just pinch yourself sometimes and say, how the hell am I doing this?
Yeah, I mean, the Harvard thing was just phenomenal. Just the opportunity to just be on that campus, and it's not too far. Well, when I say it's not around the corner for me, but it's about 3 hours from where I live, and just a remarkable place. Just so much history and so much knowledge that it's off the charts. That place.
Good. Let me ask you a question. What helped you, or maybe it was just willpower, what helped you get clean and sober? What was the event that kind of made you say, you know what, I really got to deal with this?
Yeah, again, it was my father dying of cancer. And again, just this feeling, like unexplained feeling, because he wasn't really conscious, but it was like he was talking to me. Like, matter of fact, it was like really the first time ever in his life that he was actually talking to me, but not in spoken word. It was just in this feeling, like this, without words being said. And it was so powerful. That was the turning point for me. I mean, like I said, I had 2 near-death experiences from alcohol poisoning, one back in the late 80s and one back on Cinco de Mayo of 1995. And thank God I woke up like, I was like this and not like this. If I had fallen back, I would have been gone. I would have been, dead back then. That wasn't the wake up call. It was my father. And it was, I can't explain how powerful this wake up call was. This was like the turning point that just completely turned everything around for me.
Yeah. When you're on your deathbed, I think, my dad died of lung cancer.
That's what my dad did, lung cancer.
Yeah, and he smoked a pipe all the time. And then he gave it up years ago because he had to have bypass surgery. And so I'm not worried because he's my stepfather. I used to think genetically I was going to get that, but I realized my father was one of the most sensitive men I've ever met. He would lash out before you could hurt him. He would tell you off before you. And I realized that was a scared little kid in there.
Absolutely.
That anger is not a primary emotion. It's a secondary emotion. And for those of you who don't know what the hell are you guys talking about? Something has to go through the process for you to get angry. If you're sitting in joy, you're sitting in joy. There's no, you can make yourself happy, but anger, just put a D in front of that. And when we feel danger or fear, then we react. And like you said at the beginning, it's usually from your childhood stuff.
Yeah.
And what I think is great, and maybe you agree with this, you may be a better husband, a better father, a better whatever, because your father wasn't any of those things.
Exactly. I think had I not gone through that experience, I had been engaged once before my dad passed away. I was engaged again after that, and then I finally got married, which is where I am at today. But had I not gone through that, I would have repeated the same pattern of dysfunction with my children, and
right.
then it would have been passed on from there. Because again, kids, we repeat what we observe growing up. We do it subconsciously, and it's all tied to limited beliefs. So my limited beliefs were established at a young age, and that disconnect with my father just, even though I projected this level of high self-esteem to other people, it was really not true. I really had low self-esteem and low self-confidence, and my anger and my behavior and the things I did just would mask it, to pull the wool over people's eyes.
Brother, you and I have a lot in common. I was masking the pain at home by having this amazing self-confidence. I played drums. I was cool. I was funny. But those are all, how do you call them? I'm having a senior moment where you forget that one word. They were survival tools.
Yes, exactly.
Survival tools. And I'm going to lead into the work you're doing today because this is exciting. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have things going on in your personal life, it will affect your business life and vice versa. Your limited beliefs, your emotional stuff, your anger, your whatever is going to be reflected in your business. So that's why so many successful entrepreneurs get therapy, get a coach, start working with Tony Robbins. And whether you hate Tony Robbins or not, I love Tony. He hired me to teach about millennials. So Tony's an amazing influence to me. But people are hiring these people because they want to get out of their family programming, their limited beliefs, this self-talk that goes inside our head that we're not good enough, we're not blah, blah, blah. It's nonsense. You have to have it removed, and people like Chris help you remove it. Let's talk about Prosperneur. Chris started this. It's an amazing term, Prosperneur, just like entrepreneur, but Prosperneur, an individual whose health and wealth are in alignment in a way that leads to true prosperity. And that's why I started talking about this, okay, because we have to get in that alignment. Your book, Master Your Inner Critic, Resolve the Root Cause, Create Prosperity, addresses this and went international bestseller back in 2016. He also co-authored the recent edition to Mastering the Art of Success with Jack Canfield. Very impressed, my friend. And his weekly radio show, Sustainable Success, is part of the Voice America Influencers channel. Let's talk about this, man. I love this term. I'm part of your group on Facebook, Prosperneur. Tell me about it.
All right, so Prosperneur, Brad, it doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur. It's more or less a way of life in doing business, a way of conducting yourself, living a life of true prosperity. And what it means is it's first putting your wellness principles first to be aligned with your wealth principles. So I'll define what wellness is. Wellness isn't just physical wellness or, let's say, emotional wellness. That they are two important pillars of wellness, but there's 8 pillars of wellness. There's social wellness. That means, what is the relationship with yourself and other people? There are 3 types of relationships with other people: codependent, independent, interdependent. Obviously, interdependent being the positive and the healthy relationship versus codependent, not healthy. Next, there would be obviously emotional well-being, addressing limited beliefs, everything we've talked about up to this point. Physical wellness, are we, putting in nutritionally dense foods into our body, foods that serve rather than not. Spiritual wellness, knowing that we have to have that relationship with ourselves, just like social wellness, because whatever faith we have, our faith in itself cannot do what we ask it to do unless we do our part. Too many people put everything all into their faith, thinking everything's going to get erased and changed. Doesn't work that way. And next would be financial wellness, to become from a place of lack or abundance. Again, that all goes back to childhood, from how you were raised in your families. If money doesn't grow on trees. We're not like those other people. Get a job like the rest of us. That type of thing. These are the things that people grow up and observe, and this is what gets embedded in our subconscious mind and our relationship with money. Intellectual wellness is, how do we stimulate our mindsets? Are we watching TV 6 hours a day, or are we reading books, doing trivia, puzzles, and other things that get us to think so we can solve problems more efficiently? Occupational wellness. It's not what we do, it's why we do it. Why do you do what you do? Because you're more than just what you do. It's about aligns with your core values and principles, and you got to love what you do if you're going to be of value to others and grow your business. Finally, there's environmental wellness. That means, what is your environment around you? When you drive in your car, when you live in your home, when you do what you do in your workplace, is it one of clutter or is it one of organization? Clutter is associated with a fixed mindset, and one of that you're operating in clutter, and you're not thinking clearly, and one of organization where you're coming from a growth mindset, and obviously you have clarity. So think of the 8 pillars of wellness like dominoes. If they're negative, they're all going to affect one another, and vice versa.
Yeah.
If it's positive, it's the same thing. There's no such thing as perfect balance. So if you look at a seesaw will never be on its axis point like this. It's always going to teeter, or it could be one extreme to the other. The key is we just want to be teetering, striving for harmony with our 8 pillars of wellness, doing the work that's necessary to keep it there, and then aligning that with our wealth principles, which would be obviously not just making money and net worth, but it's your freedom, creating a lifestyle that's important to you. And when we can have that alignment, we can absolutely experience true prosperity. So it's combining our life and business as one, and doing the work that's necessary from the inside out to make that happen. That's what a Prosperneur is. It's just a way of life and living a life of true prosperity.
I love that. And it's, we have the tools nowadays that we didn't have in the 70s. I mean, that was just beginning with EST and those kind of movements. And I've done landmark forum training. And the thing is now we have those tools, folks. Those of you taking notes, remember what we said. Your personal life will reflect in your business, and vice versa. Your business life will be reflected in your personal. So if you can look at these 8 pillars and keep them in balance and keep them juggling, because it's a constant process. How many clients do you have that, and you're going to laugh when I say it, they think once they make the $1 million, then it'll all fall into place?
Well, sometimes it can actually be an omen, right?
Yeah.
Depending upon where you're at. So the thing is, yes, I mean, just what you said, Brad, it is a process, and it never ends. Success is what you make of it, what you become. It's why that there is no instant gratification. There isn't anything that just, happens like that. And if it does, it goes just as fast as it came. You have to look at success as a process, because the success that we strive to achieve, those objectives are all a byproduct of the process itself. Right. So it's not like if, hey, you're going to lose weight because you're going to your daughter's wedding in 3 months, and you really work hard and you lose the weight, and then, okay, the wedding's over, and then you go right back to the same old routine and you put the weight back on. So it's got to become a pattern. It's got to become a part of the process. You have to make certain types of, it's not that you're changing who you are, but you're changing certain things that will improve your well-being, will improve your relationships, will improve your skills and strengths to be better at your business, so you could be more of value. So it's ongoing. It's never a thing that ends until the day you leave this planet. And then whatever happens from there, I don't know yet. So we'll find.
Folks, if you're listening in, Chris is really great. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to have him help you out. How do we get a hold of you, Chris? Where do we go?
All right, so the best place to reach me would be at my website at ChristopherSalem.com. That's all one word, Christopher, ChristopherPher, Salem with an M at the end, like Salem, Mass, or Salem, Oregon. And then I also have a nonprofit that uses the same concepts, but now addressing father-son bonding process and also building interdependent family structures. That is Empowered Fathers in Action at EFAmovement.org. Just go to the contact section and just fill out, and and where you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn's a good place. Send me a message, and let's definitely connect. I'd be happy to see how we could address and serve things that can make an improvement in your life and business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about that with this Empowering Fathers in Action. My dad and I, we shared the Cub Scouts and Webelos and Boy Scouts together. That helped. But honestly, it's I think men are changing the dialogue today. You know, we've had the women's movement, and it's forced us to redefine ourselves. And I see friends of mine all the time who are baby boomers who are still married, but they're miserable. They're in horrible situations. They refuse to get out. They refuse to be honest and have an honest conversation and work with their wife. You know, maybe they need to repair their relationship or maybe get a divorce. But that communication is so hard for some people because they don't want to break down and be truthful. They don't want to break down. And I don't know about you, but I've spent my whole life facing that, facing that horrible part of myself. And I think it makes us happier. I think it makes us more honest. I'm trying to be, how can I say, not funnier, but happier in the second half of my life. How about you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, compared to like, I spent more days in misery and anger and rage than, I mean, that was pretty much what I experienced my day-to-day life for my first 31 years of my life, you know, and occasionally putting on the smile, you know, when I was in social situations. But, you know, yes, I mean, life is short, you know, and, sometimes we got to do things that come out of our comfort zone. But if we do, we're actually going to put ourselves in a better situation. And even when we experience tough times, because that's what life is, that life, there's always going to be setbacks and challenges. We just approach it differently. We don't react. We actually we look for the blessings and opportunities disguised in those setbacks as part of the process, knowing that our emotional level will still be positive even through that, knowing us we'll even grow even further and get ahead as we see through it. So that's the difference now, that I don't come from anger anymore. You know, I come from a place of peace and love, and you know, there's just no other way for me at this point.
I agree.
Compared to what it was back in the day.
Well, you were fun hanging out with, and you have a contagious smile. That was the best part in your stories. We had some great times on that stage, man.
It was awesome.
We had 5. You had to picture this. It was really impromptu. We were just asked to do a panel discussion on being an entrepreneur, and we had 5 people up there, men and women, and we were just discussion back and forth. And you really opened up about your businesses, your life, and everything. And it was just a lot of fun. We had some jokes and things. So,
it was awesome. And you were great. I mean, you were an awesome moderator. I mean, you just kept the
Thanks.
conversation flowing. It was just real. That's what it was.
Thanks.
It was just real. Just like the show. It's just straightforward, raw, honest, you know, people speaking from the heart. And there's nothing better than that.
Thanks, brother. And we did a selfie live on stage. That was fun. Let's talk about faith. You know, I really have to say, when I was a kid, I would talk to God by walking out in the backyard and looking up at the stars. I knew something was there. I just, and I relied on it. Whatever your spiritual path is or your religion is, it's incredibly powerful because there are things that we're just not going to be able to solve. And if we can put those in the hands of whatever you follow, the Lord, Jesus, Buddha, whatever, and move forward, it helps us get the burden off our shoulders. But I want to talk about something that I see a lot of times where people shove too much of that out there and not realizing it's their own responsibility. They really do have to take the time out to maybe cut their pride and call up their kid and say, I'm sorry, or deal with stuff with your own parents or deal with certain things. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, again, things, we can't control what other people are going through. And the only thing that we can do as human beings is, learn to relate and listen to understand. And I think a lot of us, are programmed to, listen to respond, and it doesn't matter if it's in a business situation, a personal situation, it's truly learning how to relate and understanding versus respond. And when we can do that, it really, no matter if somebody is angry at you, it kind of neutralizes the situation. They begin to calm down. And knowing that we can't influence or change what they're going to do unless we continue to be the example over time, that will help them to shift their own selves towards that. But that's all we can really do. And just communicate from a place of empathy and kindness which is interdependent behavior, versus pleasing and enabling, which is codependent behavior. Right. So knowing that there's a big difference between empathy and kindness and pleasing and enabling. They're not the same thing. Many people get that confused, and they go into please mode thinking they're doing something good. They think they're, make the situation better. And what they end up doing is just making it worse and making it also uncomfortable for themselves.
I was a savior. That was my original programming, because I was helping my mom. Yep. My mom being bipolar, I grew up, and so I learned to be funny, and because my dad was always angry, so I tried to keep him from being angry, and I was the glue that kept those two together. So as I grew up, my first marriage, I was really the savior. I was going to save her and her kids and everything. And then I went to therapy. I did the work. I didn't bullshit myself. And then in my second marriage, which was probably one of the longest, most rewarding relationships I had, it was over 20 years, I realized I was a people pleaser. I shifted into trying to make her happy, and if she would be happy, that the old saying, happy wife, happy life. And how do you make somebody happy who maybe is always not so happy? Not because they're angry or mean. It's just culturally they might have not grown up in a country where culturally happiness is something you always fight and strive for. They're more into the day to day. So for me, I was completely acting out everything from my childhood, completely. So, but I can see it, because I'm not, like I said, I'm not bullshitting myself. I can see what I've done, the mistakes I've made. So as I move forward in life, and this, I think some people, they think, well, I've been married for 40 years and you might be shocked that your wife is not that happy. You're living in an illusion, and I'm not saying there aren't happy marriages out there. We compromise a lot of times. Yeah. Talk about that, man. I mean, this stuff better than me.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, Brett. I'm a firm believer that nobody can make somebody else happy. That's not it shouldn't be our responsibility. Happiness is an inside job. Yeah.
What? Wait a minute.
Yeah. But hear me out. This is all, it gets good. So the thing is that in those situations like you described, let's say somebody grew up in a very tense, very conservative household where there wasn't a lot of laughter, smiling. Everything was like, had to be, you're walking on eggshells, so to speak. No matter what you do to try to make that person happy, I'm saying it can't help, but it's really learning how to really understand that person for who they are and just being the example. So if you are a funny person, you like to make jokes, well, make them. If she laughs, she laughs. If she doesn't, she doesn't. So what? It's her responsibility for her own happiness. When two people can learn how to be happy on their own and come together and complement that to do bigger and better things and bring more joy into the relationship, that's truly a interdependent relationship versus a codependent one where somebody says, well, I'm not happy because you don't do this, this, and this for me, or you don't make enough money, or you didn't take me here. Everyone else is going here and we don't go here. All of these things, that's not the answer. No matter what you do in those situations, it'll never be good enough.
Yeah.
That's where and I can understand, because I also was a pleaser growing up, and I can relate 100% to that, back in the day. But now, when you come from empathy and kindness, you're giving without expectation, receiving without resistance, but you know when to put boundaries up and when to say no, or when to remove people out of your life that are truly toxic to your well-being. So it's a constant process of, to do that.
That's the great part about being human. We're learning every day, and I hope everybody's taking notes. This is a powerful conversation, which is what we do here on Awaken Nation. Hey, how you doing? I'm in a New York mood lately.
Well, you lived there.
Well, I lived in New York for 35 years. I come out to Vegas now, and it's so funny. I've actually had friends who go, Brad, you got to take down the New York. And you're like, are you kidding? That's wrong. If you see something wrong, you say it. If somebody's being a jerk, you tell them. It's like New Yorkers don't have time for processing the information. We're off the cuff, man, and it's going to be a long time before I calm down. So I want to talk about your nonprofit, and I love anybody who works with fathers and sons, because that's something that's near and dear to my heart. I've raised 3 stepchildren, believe it or not, and the boys that I've raised, it really was doing what my stepfather did and my grandfather did, and that is taking on a child that's not their own, but treating them as if they were, and being there. I can always say, as much as my father pissed me off, he was the North Star, baby. He was there every day, fighting for me, doing stuff for me. But let's talk about this. You're the CEO and founder of Empowered Fathers in Action, which is a 501c3 organization dedicated to strengthening the father-son bonding process through a sustainable solution process to build future leaders in the home, communities, and business from a place of a higher self-confidence and self-esteem. God, that is so important. Talk about that.
So, I mean, you really talked about how important we've always talked about, you hear in the news about women's movements and, the importance of the mother role. And of course, the mother role is always very important. But the father role for many years really didn't get its benefit. The father role was more like, we're the providers, we put food on the table, we put our children through school. We're kind of the financial means, so to speak, but we're not the nurturers or the ones that are always maybe not necessarily involved in the personal development of children. And again, it doesn't matter if it's your biological children or not. It doesn't matter in these cases. Mm-hmm. But what people don't realize is how important the father role is, because if you really look at the statistics, and I'm not talking emotional intelligence here, I'm talking intellectual intelligence, data trends of the number of men in prison, the recent, the mass shootings that take place, the school shootings that take place, serial killers. If you trace all these back, you will see in many of those cases that there was a conflict or disconnect with that person, with their father, or there was no father present at all.
Wow.
At all. So again, I'm not saying that every serial killer or every mass shooting or suicide or whatever, any of these stats that are negative could be tied to, not having a father in that role, but in many cases there are. And so these are the things that have to be addressed in order for children to grow up to be, come from a place of higher level of self-confidence and self-esteem, so that they can be better providers, spouses in their marriages, better leaders in their communities, and then also be better leaders in their business. So if we're really going to create a thriving community and a thriving business structure, we have to be able, it all comes back to what goes in that household. Right. And again, where life and business are one. And, it's harder to undo these issues, these limited beliefs in adulthood, compared to when we can address them when those children are young and they're able to make those subtle transformations into something better, and to not repeat these patterns with their children, and so on, and let more generations grow with that dysfunction.
That's incredibly powerful, what you're talking about, because if we can nip it in the bud at a young age, and we see this in all communities, it's white, Latino, Black communities, it's all there. It's the statistics are there. Growing up without a father. I don't know if you know the study, but there's a group of wild bull elephants over in Africa, and they were the equivalent of teenagers. I don't know if you know this, but elephants live about the same lifespan as a human being. They can get up to 60 years of age. So these teenage male elephants were running around. They had no male role models, older males, and they were terrorizing this village. They were doing stuff that elephants don't do. They were attacking tigers. They were going after villagers. They were angry. They were upset. Everything except painting graffiti on the trees. They were doing all these things because they didn't have any role models. So the first thing they did is they penned them in with older male elephants. And immediately they calmed down. And they started to respect each other. And they learned, just by being around each other, how to act like a proper male. And I've seen this in my own life. We had some friends of ours at a church, two women who were raising their son, and this kid had energy like you wouldn't believe. You know, that like that little boy energy that has to break stuff, and ooh, look at that, and jump on that, and and this kid was going crazy. And my wife at the time, Norma, she goes, "Oh my God, this kid drives me crazy." So I got two of my other buddies. We're all at the time we were in our 40s. I said, "Watch this." We walked over to the kid, and he was like 11, 12 at the time. And he calmed down slowly, and then he started putting his hands in his pocket like us and started mirroring our behavior. And she looked at me and she goes, "What?" I said, "This is why little boys," and God bless two mothers, who are raising kids, or single parents, God bless you. But try to get your sons around some male energy that's positive, like karate. We got my nephew into jujitsu because I couldn't be around all the time. And all the male role models there and female role models were quite intense. And how do you choose the right place to get your kid involved? Well, when you see children and parents coming out of a dojo and they're smiling consistently, you know that that's a good place to go. Not a place that punishes kids, but a place that uplifts those kids and makes them feel like they've done something and accomplished something. Because self-esteem is not something you can look a kid in the eye and go, "You're incredible, you're wonderful, you can take on the world." That's just words. That's like the Charlie Brown special where it's like, wah, 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 wah. What really helps a kid get their self-esteem is when they accomplish something they didn't think they could, and their peers notice them for it. And then the parent says, "I'm proud of you." Boom. That raises that self-esteem up so much. That relationship of time and attention is so important. Tell us a little bit about that, because I'm sure you've got some really wonderful, moments where you can talk about this. Where you've seen young boys, young men, rise up because dad was there or a father figure was there.
Yep. Well, I mean, for 6 years now, Brad, I've been coaching youth sports here locally where I live. My son's very active in baseball, football, basketball, travel teams, that type of thing. So it's been, it's like a year, it's a year-long thing. But what's great is I get to, also, work with other young boys in these matters, and some have great families, obviously, and there's occasionally those that, there might be a divorce that comes from a divorced family. Maybe the father is not around as much, and there are some cases where there's no father at all. And and it's those kids that obviously you want to spend a little bit more time with, just due to the fact because they don't have that role model. And what I like to do is the things that we're talking about here, I often use in a way that they can relate to. These young boys can relate to. So while we're having fun in practice, while we're playing the game, I'm also teaching disciplines and principles and values and leadership while we're doing it, but in a way they can relate to, not something like how I would explain to an adult. And and I think a lot of times the parents really like that, because a lot of times they're either not familiar or how to do it themselves, and they welcome that, especially the ones where they just don't have that role model in the home. And
right.
But I think it's something like you nailed it. If a child doesn't have a father, or if the father is rarely present in that child's life, getting involved in community and youth activities, through the schools is a great way, because there's a lot of great men out there that volunteer to coach. And while they can't be around these kids 24/7 or every day, it's just those pockets of time that can really be beneficial to help that young man, to really adapt and grow into who he really is and feel good about himself, versus the other way around. So, just like you said, and the dojo is, it can't get better than that. I mean, it's all about disciplines, good habits, respect, and, leading by example.
Yeah. Get your kids involved in something. I mean, it's, I was involved in drumline when I was a kid, and my dad and we bonded over Muhammad Ali. We watched every fight. It was just amazing. My father loved Muhammad Ali. He loved his arrogance. He loved his braggadocio. He loved his boxing abilities. He just loved him. yeah, it's sort of like the experience is just incredible. And statistics have shown this. Bullying goes down. Kids' self-esteem, violence drops, getting involved in gangs and all these other things. It all drops when fathers and father figures, because I'm an uncle who acts like a father, when they're involved that way. And I think it's tremendous work what you're doing. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, reach out, go to Chris's website, ChristopherSalem.com, and also the Empowered Fathers in Action, which is EFAmovement.org. And right now we're going to go into the lightning round, Chris, as we end Awaken Nation. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Do your best to answer them. And we're going to learn a little bit more about you from this. What was your favorite album growing up?
Favorite album? I mean, I love hard rock and believe it or not, heavy metal, but that was a little later. But I would say growing up when I was a little kid, it was obviously Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven, that album. Just
incredible.
At a young age, I was a kid, I was a little kid. It just always resonated with me. To this day, I can still sing that song word for word.
I'll tell you how I am. The first chance I had to buy my own albums, Columbia House Records and tapes.
Yeah. Oh God. Now we're really dating ourselves now.
I bought the Kiss Destroyer album.
Kiss Destroyer. Kiss was another one. Yeah.
And in the same mail, I got an 8-track of John Denver.
Oh my God!
So
talk about a contrast.
I am very eclectic and a little weird on that level. Don't judge me. Do not.
Not judging. No, oh God, believe me.
So my other question is, what's your favorite food, man?
God, I'm a foodie. I love. Ask my wife; she's a great cook. But I'd have to say sushi. I love sushi.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big fan of sushi, and out here in Vegas, Mexican food. Real Mex. Not Tex-Mex. Not Tex-Mex. I eat an avocado every day, bro.
Oh, I do too. Avocado for breakfast, lunch, dinner, you name it. I love it.
Matter. Yeah. Keto, maybe. What would be your dream vacation?
Dream vacation. That's a really good one. I believe it or not, I've been to a lot of different places. But there's something I really want to go, and a lot of people think I'm crazy, but I really want to go to, even though I've been there, but I haven't really explored it, is Iceland. I don't know why. I just want to, the geothermal energy and, the natural baths. You could go into a place and, it's like a natural bath. Because of the geothermal energy coming through the ground. And just the scenery, I don't know. It's just something, especially in the summertime where the light, it stays sunlight out till 2 o'clock in the morning. It's called me crazy, but I just, there's something about it, like from the energy level of it,
I think we found your past life.
Maybe I could be Icelandic. I don't know. There are tours, and a lot of you may know this, but for amateur photographers, they take you to Iceland in the middle of the winter when the aurora borealis is, doing its thing up there. Yeah. And I have friends who've gone up there with ice suits on. They are covered from head to toe. And there's a particular type of camera you have to buy that won't be affected by the cold. And I think it's a Nikon. There's a certain Nikon they get. And the photos they bring back, baby, you might want to consider that trip the dream vacation. Yeah,
do Iceland in the summer and Iceland in the
Some
winter.
People say Iceland. What are you, nuts? The Caribbean, Bora Bora. Come on. But to me, after a while, they're all the same, those places.
I think Chris is descended from Vikings.
Maybe. I could have been a Viking in the past. I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, reach out. ChristopherSalem.com and EFAmovement.org. It has been an honor to have you on here, brother. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
And we'll talk more. I'm going to be on your show soon, so I look forward to it, man. All right, signing off. Another great episode of Awakened Nation. Thank you so much for being a big part of the Awakened Nation movement. This is how you can help me and our extraordinary guests. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. and let's grow this movement by word of mouth. Our success will be because of you. Thank you, and see you next week.